this episode is dedicated to the legend Jimmy Wang Yu, who unfortunately passed away just a few days ago. He was an absolute legend, and I recommend, if you're a fan of Kung Fu, to pay your respects, go out and watch some Jimmy Wang Yu flicks. Hello, travelers, and welcome back to the Temple of Kung Fu. As always, I am your host, the Shaolin Kid, and tonight's tale is the One-Armed Swordsman versus the Nine Killers from 1976. 1976, starring Jimmy Wang Yu, rest in peace.
Well, Mr. Liu, that's a great sword you have there.
And in a very short time, you're going to find out how great it is.
Size of sword doesn't matter. What really counts isn't the sword, only the man.
Anyway, as I was saying. So, to the movie. Honestly, this movie shouldn't even really be called One-Armed Swordsman. And I'm not trying to disrespect the legend here, but, it ain't Jimmy's fault. But I feel like this movie, it's not bad. It's still a good movie. But it's not really a one-armed swordsman movie, alright? If you're trying to watch this movie to get to one-armed swordsman, you're not really going to get that here because he's not even one-armed. Like, the twist at the end of the movie, spoilers, by the way, if you want to watch it, like, he gets his arm cut off by the bad guy, Chu, who he's been trying to kill. And he's like, ha ha! Now you are the no-armed swordsman. Ha 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 ha! And then he, like, slaps him a few times, and he's like, ha 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 ha! You are useless. You can't do anything. And then Jimmy Wang stabs him with his other arm. He's like, you were never one-armed. Alright, so, like, he was never a one-armed swordsman because he was not one-armed, and he never was a swordsman. He never used a sword except if it was somebody else's sword. Like, there was a guy. Also, a funny part about one of the parts in the movie is that a guy, he had a big-ass sword. And they built it up. He's like, bring out the sword. And these two guys brought out a giant 6-foot-long sword. And it's like, and then there's like, he has like a servant or whatever, and he's like, this is the greatest sword of all time. No sword will ever beat this sword. And then he pulls it, and then he chops his chair in half, and then he starts swinging at Jimmy Wang Yu. And then he chops through a sign, and it breaks in half. He uses it for a total of like 15 seconds before it breaks. And then, like, when he defeats him, Jimmy Wang Yu, like, kicks him into the sword, and he gets impaled by his own big sword. And then when Jimmy Wang Yu walks out of the guy's little sword lair, his servant, he, like, goes on his knees, and he's like, you loved swords, and you were killed by your sword. And then it just cuts back. Like, that whole, like, not the fight scene, but the servant, like, paying his respects, I guess, was, like, completely pointless, and it was really funny. And, like, it's just good. So, Jimmy Wang Yu, the one-armed swordsman, is, he's, like, doing his thing, and, then he's like, I want revenge. So, the one-armed swordsman wants revenge on this guy named Chu, who killed 80 members of his family. And Chu has, 9 killers. And at the beginning of the movie, it's a cold open to him killing one of the killers, right? So, really, the movie, one of the 9 killers already dies in the first 5 minutes. So, really, this movie should be called the guy versus the 8 killers. But I'm not here to judge. But he kills that guy, and then he's like, "That's 1 down, 8 more to go." And then like the whole film, like, also another thing about the movie, like then he goes like killing throughout the film. He kills all the killers, and then he kills Chew at the end of the movie. Then Spearman, a friend of his, gets killed by one of the killers, and then he kills that guy. And then one of his friends, she betrays him and tries to kill him, but then he turns it out and kills her. And then she says she wanted to kill the one-armed swordsman because he killed her father, who we saw earlier on in the movie playing chess. Well, he didn't kill her father, but he was the reason that he died, that he killed himself. So yeah. And then the movie's very basic, but most of the most kung fu films are very basic. The action was pretty good. It's just I wish that the one-armed swordsman actually used a sword, because he doesn't even have his iconic half dao that he has in the first one, that he has in all of them. He never uses it, which is like, if he's a swordsman, where is his sword? Because I think he explains earlier on in the movie that he's like, I don't need a sword, I'm too good for a sword, right? Yeah, like that's the only explanation they give for him not needing a sword. He's like, I'm too good for a sword. Even though I'm called the one-armed swordsman, I don't need a sword. I can just punch people and then it'll kill them. Oh, man. The fights were enjoyable, because they were super ridiculous. Like, the fights were super ridiculous, and I think that really adds to it. There was a guy that I thought was one of the killers, the guy that, like, poisoned him. Anyway, there was, like, a guy by the river, and he, like, acted like he was poisoned him, and his fight was pretty good. There was another guy that he fought earlier. How did he kill that guy? Didn't he kill that guy as well?
Yeah, he killed everybody in the movie, so
yeah,
yes.
He killed, actually, like, every character that he knew died. Like, every character except Jimmy Wang Yu died in this movie. Like, fucking everyone died. And it was, pretty good. He's just, like, going through China. He's, like, I'm punching people to death with my not one arm. This movie is fun, enjoyable, ridiculous. It is, funny. And it is action-packed. Surprising! It's, yeah! I thought I saw something. But anyway, I think I've said what I need to say. So thank you, Jimmy Wang Yu, for all of the amazing films that you starred in and occasionally directed and written over the years. And it's really sad that you're gone, but you know what they say. You should smile for what you had, and instead of when they're gone, smile for what you had. You know, isn't that the saying? It's something along those lines. Just be happy that it happened, not be sad that it's gone. You know, be happy that he lived long enough to make films until he was pretty old. I remember reading his HKMDB page and saying that he was starting films till like the early 2010s. So he was still going strong. And I respect that. So, love you, Jimmy Wang Yu. You will not be forgotten, Jimmy. I swear by that. And people will still be watching your films. I know it. For many years to come. Love you, man. I think I'd give this movie an 8. I give this movie an 8. And I think I'd give this movie an 8 because I think it's good. On a kung fu scale. I like it. So, like, yeah, it was enjoyable. Yeah. So, guys, what's your favorite Jimmy Wang Yu film? Leave them down in the comments. So, guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. You know, I hope you share it, like it, subscribe, turn on notifications. You know, and as always, thanks for visiting the Temple of Kung Fu. And as always, Buddha be praised. Freeze frame ending!